Our next speaker, and I'll go over some parts of her bio, which is amazing. Christine Bacon holds 3 degrees in communication. She is the wife of a retired Navy officer and former life skills educator at the Navy Fleet and Family Center. She has her own radio show, which is amazing, called Breakfast with Bacon, she's a relationship expert. She's written a wonderful book called The Super Couple, and she was actually a guest of ours last year and came up to me after this program exactly 1 year ago, I guess, and said, I'd love to come speak at your breakfast. I said, you got it. At your brunch. Got it. Nailed it for next year. And she gave me a copy of this book, and she signed it. And I said, that's great. And I said, well, now that she's our speaker, I better read it. I better make sure it's going to be okay. And I read it cover to cover. It's an amazing book. I really would encourage you, whether you're not married, been married for 50 years, you can get a lot out of it. I've been married for almost 17 years in September. I was thinking of something else, but I've been married for almost 17 years, in September the 9th. And I got a tremendous amount out of it. And it didn't only inform the work that I think that I have in my life with my wife, but the work that we do at Catholic Charities. Because it's about relationships and it's about love. But the reason I would say the greatest compliment I can give Christine is that she was also one of our premarital counselors that did a lot of premarital work in Catholic Charities when we used to do premarital for the diocese. And when I first got to Catholic Charities, one of my first jobs was, as the chief operating officer, was kind of review all of the programs that were going on. And so I would look at we would have probably 7 or 8 facilitators in our repertoire at Catholic Charities doing all elements of premarital work. And I would look at their reviews. That was my job. Like, okay, how's this person? And, I hate to say it, but at the time, and maybe still is, a lot of people that came to that were checking that off like flowers. I got to go get premarital to get married in the church. That's what I have to do. And I got to get flowers, and I got to get a limo driver, and I got to get a cake. And so their reviews were not always, inspirational, except for one person, Christine Bacon. Every single time that review was handwritten with something nice to say about her. I learned so much about myself, about my spouse, about whatever. And it was like unbelievable. And so when I met her and she had this book, I thought, wow, this is her. I never got to meet her because by the time we lost premarital and the diocese took it over. But just from her reviews alone, I remember her name, which tells a lot about her. So just handwritten reviews, like unbelievable reviews. So she is a communications expert and an amazing author. And so please help me welcome Dr. Christine Bacon.
Well, starting with Rhonda, that's going to make me cry. So be prepared, I'm going to cry about something today. I appreciate your patience. I don't usually read what I speak, but I'm kind of glad that I wrote something that I'm going to read today, because after listening to your intro and the theme being love, I think you're going to understand why the Lord brought me to this talk today. But I'm not a procrastinator by nature. I am actually belonging to that club of over-planning control freaks. So when I'm invited to deliver a talk or a keynote, I usually begin with sufficient advance time to do something brilliant, and then I can edit it and practice it and deliver it over and over, and this time was no different. For the past week or so, this topic has been marinating in my brain, and for the better part of the week, I've been sitting at a computer trying to type that which I am speaking at this moment. But to my great dismay, no words came. Any of you that speak, you know where I am on that. Because the closer you get to that deadline, it's those, oh dear God, what am I going to say kind of moments happen. So I had words, they would come to me, but the thought of 120 glassy-eyed women and men going, oh God, kill me, had me hitting the delete button way more often than it was hitting anything good with the words. But by yesterday, I found that I was dealing with that demon of anxiety, the one that was whispering to me, you'll never get this done. Yeah, you're going to be up all night with nothing to show for it, and you're going to mortify yourself. And I'm going to do my darndest to watch you fail. And he did do his darndest, but he failed. Thank God for the very first Bible verse I've ever memorized. Any of you Bible people? Philippians 4:6. Be anxious for nothing, but in all things, pray. Pray. Anybody know that Bible verse? All right. So I've been praying it. It's funny the things that we take for granted, for even the words in our heads are only there because God himself placed them there. Unless they're naughty thoughts, of course, which you know who is planting those thoughts in your head. And I've had a few of those. These couldn't have come from heaven, thoughts in my head before. So on occasions it would seem that most of those words should be bleeped out, and they usually contained the words Danny Bacon right after them. Oh, that bleeping Danny Bacon. They would send me straight to the confessional and require more than a few Hail Marys to repent. I'm sorry. But I digress. Suffice it to say that one simply has little control over whether or not the words come in the significant time frame. Today is one of those days. I often prepare for a speech by clarifying the meanings of things. I'm a researcher, so I love definitions. So in preparing for this talk, I decided to look up the words Catholic and charity. Being a cradle Catholic, I was already aware of the fact that the word Catholic meant universal. And for the most part, I understood what the word charity meant, but I thought I've got to dig a little deeper. So I began with the standard dictionary definition of charity, which simply said the voluntary giving of those in need. Okay, good. But that just didn't seem like enough. So I dug deeper. I read a commentary that stated that in the Bible, charity is known as the greatest of the 3 Christian graces. Now, that didn't make sense to me because I thought, well, that's faith, hope, and love. So I'm going to dig a little deeper there. How can it be? As I set out to pursue this linguistic, archaeological dig of sorts, I wanted to get to the root of the word charity, and I found something really cool. Apparently, St. Jerome, when he was trying to convert the Greek Testament to Latin, he wanted to find a word that was appropriate with agape. Now, I'm not going to assume that every one of you understands what agape means, though I'm sure many of you do. I've learned a long time ago not to assume anything because that just makes it, you understand that. Okay, so follow me on this rabbit trail. Agape is the Greek word for love, one of the Greek words for love, along with storge, ludus, eros, pragma, philia. I know it's all Greek to you. So when St. Jerome found no word that appropriately fit agape to convert to Latin, he chose instead the word caritas. And most of you know that that means charity in English. So Catholic Charities is actually an organization that could rename itself Universal Love. What a beautiful testament to the work being done here. Any of you right now here employed or volunteering at Catholic Charities, when asked, what do you do for a living? Just answer them, oh, I'm a professional lover. Be careful who you say that to, however, because if someone just starts smiling and hands you a $5 bill, hand it back. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit more about love, for it is quite possibly one of the most talked about entities in the English language, maybe in all humanity, if we would agree. Now in English, love is love. We only have one word for it. I love my dog, I love my shoes, I love ice cream, I love my husband, and I certainly love my grandchildren. And while these are all love, they don't all mean the same thing. They're different in kind and degree. I mean, seriously, I can't possibly love my husband as much as I love my shoes. I mean my shoes as much as my husband. That was a Freudian slip. Go with me. Anyway, All these different types of love are different. But it sucks to be us because in English there's a singular word, love. But in Greek, those 4 or 5 different words were used to describe different kinds of love. Eros. We get the word erotic because eros is a time of love that is defined by feelings of affection, attraction, and sexual desire. If you have kids in here, just plug your ears. Ask your mom and dad. They'll tell you what that means. It's the word most closely related to our feelings of being in love. Then there's storge. Storge is a companionate love. It's a trusting love based on a deep sense of friendship, companionship, and the enjoyment of common activities, mutual interests, and shared laughter. It's the love that we feel for our best friends. And if you're really lucky, it's the love you also feel for your spouse. For those of you that want to be best friends with your spouse, buy a copy of The Super Couple. They'll tell you how to do it. Philia, brotherly love. And that's why the city of Philadelphia is known as the city of brotherly love. And then there's agape. Agape love revolves around caring, concern, and tenderness, and is more focused on giving than receiving. Agapeic lovers are motivated by an intense concern for the other's well-being. They are willing to make sacrifices for the other, even at the expense of their own needs. Agape is unconditional love. No conditions, none. Agape is the kind of love Christ had for us. You know, the kind that would make someone want to sacrifice his love, his life, for the benefit of his beloved. Agape is God's love. And though God is the only one who can ever really say he agapes all the time, everyone without fail, we are all called to agape one another. So when Jesus said to love one another, he was actually in Greek saying, agape one another as I have agaped you. Okay, easier said than done. So who in here has ever agaped somebody? A couple of us, okay, right? I mean, truly, truly agape, no matter what, no conditions. So let me read a couple criteria here. Many of us tend to be more charitable with our perceptions of our ability to agape than others and how we're receiving it. Maybe we've agaped, maybe we haven't. Let's get a couple of examples here. I'd like to share with you a story about an assignment I did recently at Old Dominion University where I teach. I teach a course called Communication in Close Relationships, and fortunately one of the chapters was defining these different types of love. And so what I did is, after discussing love with my students, I gave them an assignment. Go home and agape somebody. Now, they were all onto this. They're like, okay, I'm going to do this. So they privately, washed their dad's car, or they cleaned the house for their mom, or they took their roommate out, or various things, and they loved it. So they came back, and we started talking about this assignment. And something happened in the classroom that day. About 39 students were jammed in a classroom. And I can only explain it to you and you'd understand, as the power of the Holy Spirit came over that secular classroom. Something happened that even the students later said, man, I don't even know what I was saying. I was like, I know, but God did. So something the Lord did in the room that day compelled me to add a second assignment on. They had to write a paper on the first assignment. So the second assignment was this. True agape is not just loving your neighbors, but loving your enemies. So your assignment this weekend is to go home and agape somebody you hate. One honest kid in the back of the class goes, dude, I'm out. I'm out. All right. But you could see the excitement in their eyes. They were kind of like, how do I do this? So someone who's cheated on you, someone who's stolen from you. There's so many things that these college students go on. And to really be convicted in their gut, who do I hate or dislike or just really not want to even spend time with enough to want to go and love them? The assignments that came back were tremendous. I gave them 2 choices, a 2-page paper or a 2-minute video. I'm trying to get with the times. Class of '83, it's really hard to do this video thing, whatever. I can easily edit a paper, but here's what we did. So one girl came back and said, I agape'd a roommate who had stolen from me before. I don't remember what she did to that student, to that roommate, but she went out of her way to love her. Another girl agape'd a boyfriend who had cheated on her. She'd written him a letter of forgiveness. Another girl said, my dad's in jail. I pretty much hate him. I've never visited him. I knew he wanted me there. So I visited my dad for the first time. She said, I'll never, ever be grateful enough for the relationship that started that day in the prison, because I plan to visit him more often. Another girl came up to me and said, I have a half-sister. Her name is Danielle, and my dad had an affair, and he conceived Danielle. And Danielle's about my age. She's about 3 weeks younger than me, and Danielle and I haven't really had a relationship, though Danielle begs to have one. She wants to be involved in family events, and I don't want her there. She's the reason our family was ruined. Her mom has since died, and Danielle has been reaching out to her, so she said, I called Danielle and asked her if she wanted to have a latte, and the response that she sent me was like, oh, yes, sure. And the student came to me, and she was crying at how this relationship with Danielle touched her. Because, see, this is what agape is. It's about focus on giving, but in turn, we receive. One young man, Josh H., said, it didn't work. My boss is a jerk, and he hates me, and I did something nice for him, and I did this and that, and then he's still a jerk. Well, Josh, it did work. Because agape is not about what you get. Agape is about what you give. You gave your boss love, whether he received it or not. And then there's Sam. So Sam was videotaping. Now, I've had Sam follow me. He's, some of us teachers, I know you have them. You have your groupies, the ones that like you, and so they follow you. So I've had Sam for like 3 semesters. He loves me. I tell my students, don't give me information that I have to report, okay? Okay. But I knew that Josh, Sam, let's go with whatever, Sam, I knew that he had dealt drugs in the past. And so Sam chose the option of a video. So I go to my computer, I graded all these papers, and here comes his video, and I'm grading Sam's paper, and he's got his cell phone, as the millennials do, and he's sipping a drink, and he's like, hey, Dr. Bacon, so this is my agape assignment, and he's walking to class. And I'm at my computer, and he says, so this guy robbed me? He robbed me and a couple of my friends. I hate him. He had me down on the ground, and he stepped on my back. He stole all 3 of our iPhones. He took my product. Well, really, Dr. Bacon, it wasn't my product. It was somebody else's product. Thanks, Sam. But I don't let people do that to me. I don't let anybody disrespect me like that. Did you know, Dr. Bacon, that if you have an iPhone and you call Apple, they will tell you where those phones are located? So I called and I found out it was located at such and such an address. So I went to that address and I thought, I got to kill this guy. Now I'm at my computer going, I'm sure this is just a euphemism. So he goes and he sees this house where this offender was, and he said, well, thank God I went, because he wasn't at that house where the phone was. He was 4 houses down. And I kept thinking of your agape assignment, but don't do that to me. No one does that to me. I hated it. And I thought about agape, but I thought, So I got my gun. And now I stopped breathing. I'm at home, and I'm watching this on my computer, and I don't know what I'm about to hear. So I got my gun, I went outside of his house, and I waited. And I saw him walk up. And I got out of my car, and I grabbed my gun. Dr. Bacon, I was going to kill him. And as he walked out, a woman crossed our path. She was holding a cat. And he goes, you know what? Maybe that's a God thing. I'm going to give him an agape. So, I didn't kill him. So I realized this. And then he starts walking again and he goes, I did shoot up his car, by the way. Couldn't let him off the hook totally. And I'm going, by the way, the situation's been taken care of. If any of you's police, we're fine. So I had to give him a grade. So he got an A. What would you have given him? And then I wrote underneath it, Josh, you got an A. You did everything you were supposed to do with this assignment. But I was compelled to add, however, true agape is not choosing the lesser of two evils. True agape is loving them despite the hateful things they did to you. I met with him after class that next week, and I said, why don't you do something different, like forgive him or detail his car? He goes, oh, not only no, but hell no. I said it was worth a try. But agape saved a man's life. I take no credit for that assignment because God did something in the classroom that day. My assignment was done after the first week. But God knew. God knew. So let me ask you again. Have you ever agape'd someone, or have you maybe just storgayed them? Or maybe even philia? Or have you erosed them? By the way, if your husband ever says, hey, honey, I love you, it's usually because he wants you to eros him. Am I allowed to say that? That's another 10 Hail Marys, isn't that, sister? I'm sorry. Well, let's just say we have, on occasion, actually agape'd someone. My next question to you is that, have you only agape'd your neighbors, or have you ever agape'd an enemy? How about that friend that stole from you? Have you agape'd him? What about that sibling that ran off with mom's stuff after she died before everybody else could get to her house? What about her? Has it been decades since you've spoken to her? What about that drunk driver that killed your family member? Have you agape'd them? Or that parent that beat you, molested you, neglected you and your brother? Are you motivated by an intense concern for their well-being? Are you willing to make sacrifices for them at your own expense? A bit less confidence in your ability to agape now, aren't you? I know I am. Have you ever agape that spouse that cheated on you? Did you ever forgive him? Did you agape him? Did you love him without conditions, or did you divorce him? You know, that condition. Now, please don't think I am judging you, because I am not. I cannot, because I have failed at agapeing way more often than I have ever succeeded at it. But I'm simply trying to point out the excruciating difficulty associated with true agape for us mere mortals. How about his mistress? Have you ever agape'd her, said a prayer for her? You know, Jesus loves her as much as he loves you. Ouch. See, when we put love to the test, we can now get a much clearer idea of the great agape that Christ had for us. Because he not only loved us, he loved us while we were stealing, cheating, gossiping, sinning. And he would do it again. I could only hope to be so loving one day. In 1983, I married my husband. I was 18 years old and I was pregnant. We married a couple months later. We had a second child, and after 4 years of marriage, I left him for another man. I was the adulterer. We were separated for 4 years. I had no intentions of ever getting my husband back, and one day my husband came to me. He had asked me a couple times. I ditched the dirt bag, and I realized I was smarter than to be doing something so foolish. And I remember my husband came back to me and he said, "Please reconcile with me." And of course, it's like, no. We did this marriage thing. It didn't work. And of course, infidelity always changes the brains because of hormonal production. I don't know if you knew this, but if anyone's ever had an affair, the first thing they say is, "I never loved you," or "I love this person more." Let me just convince you, if you're in the middle of that right now, your spouse really did love you. They do love you. You got to wait for those 11 horrifying hormones to wear back down so they can see again that they did, in fact, love you. But I was telling my husband I never did really love you. And despite me pushing him away, hurting him, insulting him, humiliating him, he came back one day and he got on his knees and said, "Please, take me back." Yeah, this is the part where I cry. So how humbling must it have been for Danny Bacon to ask the one who had humiliated him, embarrassed him, offended him, to come home. Now there's Agape. And here we are, nearly 34 years later, and I have not cashed in on that death to us part clause yet. So, we don't have a perfect marriage, we don't have a perfect family, but we're happy. So the devil couldn't get his due in our marriage, so we moved on to our children. Now, I'm not here to shame anybody, so I will not tell her story, but my daughter followed a similar path, and that's as far as I'll go with that. She was married at 18, or had a child at 18, married at 19, and she left her husband. So she and I became estranged. 3 years ago, yesterday, she left her husband, and she and I didn't speak. I reached out to her every week. Didn't know where she was. No texts, no calls, no whatever. She hated me. I had just written a book called The Super Couple. The devil knew he couldn't get me, so when he moved on to my daughter, he realized, I'll try and get her. Of course, when we're doing things we shouldn't be doing and shame covers us, the evil one likes to lie to us, tell us all these awful things. Well, I knew my daughter needed to live her own life and her own journey. But while on her sojourn, far from where her family could reach her, she once texted me, "Do not call me, do not text me, I do not want you in my life." She had no problem attacking, hurting, and ripping at her mother's heart. There were so many mean and nasty things said and done while on that sojourn, hurtful things to me, her husband, her children. The pain was tremendous. So tremendous that at one point I yelled out, "I hate her!" Mom. And then I immediately repented of my words. But there they were, out there in the universe, no one to hear them but me and God. No one was directly offended by them, as society likes to say all the time, what you do in private's your own business. Many might even say they did no harm, but they did. There they were out in the universe, spoken by the mouth of a mother about the child she carried in her womb for 9 months. Really 10, I'd still be pregnant with her today if they hadn't induced. The kid did not want to come out. But here it is, nearly 3 years later, and that day and that pain is seared into my brain. The pain of me saying I hate my daughter. But sadly, so does God remember. You see, even though no one else heard it, the God of all creation spoke to my heart that day, and what he said convicted me. For in that moment, I knew that though it lasted for only a split second, that I had stopped loving. See, we say we'll love you forever, but Whenever you say something mean to someone or think something negative about them, whenever you yell or scream or hurt or attack, in that split second, you stop loving. When you say love is patient, love is kind, have you ever thought an unkind word about your spouse? Because in that split second, you stopped loving. Love does not hold records of wrongs. Have you ever done that one? Oh, I remember back in 1983 when you did fill in the blank. Because if you can fill in the blank, you stop loving, because love doesn't hold a record of wrongs. I held every record of every wrong in my brain so that if I needed it, I could throw it back. That's not love. Love does not hold grudges. Love is not rude. Love is all those things love isn't. I was at some point. Don't raise your hand, but in your heart, can I get an amen from someone else who's thinking I'm convicted too? So when I said that I hated my daughter, I knew that in that moment I had stopped loving, and I wept. And I wept not only for the daughter living the prodigal lifestyle, but for the realization that I could never truly love her as I should. I failed at my mandate to agape one another as Christ agapes me. Though a mother forsake her child, I will never forsake you. Thank God for that. But here's where the grace of God comes in. Grace, another definition, unmerited favor. Have you ever had someone give you a favor that you didn't deserve? I have. Though I had always been a woman of prayer, deep prayer, it was during those darkest of days that my prayer life became stronger than I could have ever imagined it. I prayed for my grandchildren. I prayed for my son-in-law. I prayed for my children. I prayed for my neighbors. I prayed with a fervor that I had never before prayed with. I prayed for my daughter, and I prayed for me. Little by little, the Lord used my daughter's prodigal journey to show me how to love more deeply, more richly, more authentically. And my prayers for my daughter began to change. See, where in the beginning I used to pray that my daughter would turn from her sinful ways, admit the truth about her behavior, admit the lies that were keeping us apart as mother and daughter, and that in her admission of guilt, I prayed that I would one day be vindicated. Over time, though, the Almighty God, who began a mighty work in me, in my heart. And my prayers for my daughter began to change. One day while sitting in my prayer chair, scales began to fall from my spiritual eyes. And the Lord made clear to me the selfishness of my prayers. Here I am praying, big holy girl, all about me. My prayers for my vindication were all about me. Yeah, I wanted my daughter back, but so she knew her place. And that's sad. I'm her mom. And the funny thing is I'd still take a bullet for her. And I was humbled. On that day, my prayers changed, and now they were truly prayers of agape. Dear Lord, I no longer desire vindication as I desire my daughter to be freed from the yoke of deceit that was holding her down. It was weighing her down. The evil one just loved my daughter being crushed under this yoke, and I didn't even see it. And I finally saw that yoke, and I said, get away from my daughter. Go to hell. Lord, release her, no matter what it does for me. Free her. And a great thing happened. A miracle took place. 2 days later, the lie that was at the foundation of our estranged relationship for 3 years was not only revealed, but it was confessed by her own mouth. Not only was my daughter now freed from this yoke that she carried for so many years, but additionally, I was vindicated as well. And the funny thing is, I no longer cared about vindication. We got a twofer. I cannot praise God enough for the speed at which our relationship has been repaired. Oh, there's still work to be done. But we are not only on speaking terms daily, where before we'd go months without so much as a call or a text, a message being responded to. My daughter is now beginning to initiate the call, to vent, to seek guidance from me and wisdom. And dear God knows I don't have enough of that. And best of all, on February 6th, it was 3 months ago yesterday, I was privileged with being at the hospital with my once prodigal daughter as she delivered my 5th grandchild, August Ellis. Our God is a God of reconciliation. Our God is a God of forgiveness. And our God is a God of agape. And what is agape, ladies and gentlemen, but the supreme principle of Christian life? And it expresses itself in action. Every action you do either agapes somebody or does not. You are to live a life with agape actions. From this moment forward, I want you to think agape every day, every moment. Not just with those you love, but with those who you struggle to love. Agape expressed itself in action in the letter of humility that the Lord compelled me to write my daughter January 24th of this year, apologizing for all I'd done. Though she was the fault bearer, the Lord knocked me to my knees and said, "You hold a lot of fault." So I texted my daughter. I'm not going to read it to you, but this was the text message. I think my phone bill went up $800. But there are lines in that text message that said, "Forgive me for ever having failed you as a mother." She didn't even know that I had shouted out that I hated her. She didn't know what I was saying sorry for, but God knew. And I needed her forgiveness. She's not said, "I'm sorry," but you know what? I don't care. Because when God compelled me to write that letter, he knocked me to my knees. He said, "You agape. You agape. You're the 52-year-old mom. You agape her. She's just a child out there living life like your children, and I'm out here agapeing you." Conviction. Agape expressed itself in my husband's dropping to his knees and asking me to take him back 30 years ago, though I was the true offender. Before I end, I want to go back to how I began this talk today, my quest for the true meaning of Catholic charities. Though I struggled for 3 days to come up with just the right message to convey and the words through which to convey it, there was one song that kept running through my head and never left my brain. I tried to get it out, but it was still there. And finally, yesterday, I realized the Lord had been trying to get my attention. I know, I'm blonde. You brunettes would have caught it way quicker. Sorry. That song was called Ubi Caritas. You know it. Ubi caritas et amor. Forgive the nerves. Ubi caritas Deus ibi est. You know what it means? I looked it up. Ubi caritas et amor. Where there is charity and love, Deus ibi est. God is there. Where there's charity and love, God is there. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I want God to be anywhere where I am, because if he's not, I'm in a lick of danger. I never want him to leave my side. I want to parent like him. I want to give like him. I want to forgive like him. I want to love like him, and I want to reconcile like him. And though I know I will often fail, I also know that each and every day, by His grace, I will one day agape like Him. So that's my story. Though extremely imperfect, I just can't do this life thing without God by my side. Thought I'd be done crying by now. I want God to be wherever I am 24/7. So I'm going to do all I can to show charity and love to anyone He puts in my path. Ubi caritas, Deus ibi est. Want to join me?